Welcome to Convicted Hearts. I'm your host, Jen. Today I have the honor of being here with Manny. Hi, Manny. How are you today?
Hi, Jen. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I've really been looking forward to speaking with you. We have a friend in common that speaks very highly of you.
That must be Vanessa.
Vanessa, yes, shout out to Vanessa. So I guess we'll just start out with right off top. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up, and maybe something about your young life? What was young Manny like?
Well, I grew up in Encinitas. That's a city in North County of San Diego. My parents came here in the early 70s in hopes of a better life. Their plan was not to stay here, only to make a little bit of money and then head back home. Along the lines, my mom got pregnant and I was born here. So after that, they decided that they were going to just kind of, it was better opportunity for me and my siblings here.
Mm-hmm.
And so my mother was working domestic work, and my father was doing also construction or landscaping. And I went to school in Encinitas, which back then it was a little community there, Cardiff by the sea. And I remember going to school, and because English was my second language, I very early on started getting in trouble for, at times, just for trying to get clarification on the translation from English to Spanish because I couldn't understand what the assignment entailed.
Mm-hmm.
And as time progressed, they placed me in special ed classes, which that was kind of like uh, my downfall, because after that I was placed in a smaller classroom, and there wasn't really much expected of me but to just stay there and be quiet. And at a young age, you have a lot of energy, so I just allowed me the opportunity to drift around and wander the campus. And it didn't take long before I was detained and arrested and taken to juvenile hall. After that, when I got released, I was so far behind that I tried to go back to school, and then they really didn't want. They didn't really want me there, so I went to a continuation school,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't really feel comfortable at a continuation school. It was a much smaller school, not much of any goals, so I ended up getting pushed out of school.
Mm-hmm.
And around that time, I was also going to turn 18 years old, and it didn't take long before I caught a case and was back in the county looking at some very serious time. Um, and I ended up signing, which was back then in the 90s, a very popular deal, which they would give you two strikes. And so that meant, us not knowing, what that meant is that any crime that I commit that they deemed that was violent, like stealing or shoplifting or whatnot, would be a three strike, and you would be getting 25 to life. By the grace of God, I somehow never caught that third strike. But what did happen is because not finishing school and living in a city like Encinitas, which is an affluent area, predominantly white,
Mm-hmm.
um, there wasn't much job opportunity for me. So I started working at like the dealerships. I started working fast food restaurants, and it was just, I don't make an excuse, but it wasn't enough to make a life.
Yeah.
So I think I kind of became product of my environment. I started by doing drugs,
Mm-hmm.
and then that led me to buy a little more so that I could sell a little bit, so that I could get mines on
Right.
on a daily basis. The time I went to juvenile hall, I think I was like 15 years old.
Okay. Was that quite shocking, as a young man to enter the system? Or did you have any idea what you were about to walk into?
Well, I had watched movies, but the real life is not really how the movies portray it.
Okay.
Denzel Washington has a way of portraying American gangster and
Yeah.
all these rap songs, but in real life, it wasn't like that. Juvenile hall was just it was a place of just strictly a model of punishment.
Mhm.
And there was some programming like school stuff like that, but not really with the emphasis on learning.
Mhm.
So yes, I think that in retrospect, I think that was the beginning of my self-destruction, where like I learned that I could survive also in jail.
Mhm.
So then I wasn't scared of it anymore.
Yeah.
And I almost felt more welcomed in the system than in the regular schools, public schools.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard this before, speaking with other people. Yeah. Now, you mentioned sort of some of the things that led up to your adult prison time. Can you tell me what basically led up to the prison term that we're going to speak about today? What was going on in your life?
I think the pressures of everyday life.
Mhm.
Like I said, I grew up in a city where predominantly white. I mean, people wear nice clothes. They have money to eat out, and me being from a very humble upbringing, so like we didn't have like the clothes, we didn't have the money to like eat at not even places like McDonald's. So I don't blame it on just that, but I think that had a lot to do with it.
Mhm.
Society is kind of set up for us to kind of go to prison from the school. It's like the school to prison nexus. It's like it's
Mhm.
not all of it, but it's a big part of it.
Mhm. The time you served was a total of 16 years, but
I served
you,
almost a little under 16 years. Initially, I got sentenced to 30 years, which was 360 months, and I was 34 years old.
okay.
And I remember going back from my court hearings and calling my sister and saying, "Hey, what happened in court?" And she would say, "Well, you were there." And I said, "Yes, but I don't understand." She goes, "Well, what don't you understand?" I said, "I don't understand words like preponderance of evidence, relevant conduct, and all these legal words."
Right.
So, she said she'd visit, and before she visits, she sent me a dictionary, a thesaurus, a legal dictionary, and a couple books. And along came a note like, "You better start educating yourself because this is your life, and nobody knows your life like you do." And I started reading, and the dictionary became my chief source of entertainment because I had dropped out like I think like in ninth grade, so I didn't understand a lot of what was going on.
Right.
And from there on, I made it like a habit of having a word of the day every day, and that's what I did. I started educating myself in a cell.
Mhm.
I remember that I took the GED and I passed it, and I I was just asked if I would be willing to be a GED instructor, which I took the job, and I very much liked sharing the little bit of knowledge that I had with other fellow inmates. And then I tried to take some college courses, but because in the federal prison, they give priority to people that are near release, and that's 36 months to the door. At
Okay.
that time, my release date was still like 23 years away, which was 2032. So I was blessed that I had family that sent me books.
Mhm.
And that's what I did. I started just reading as many books on every topic, like because I was a father that I had left a child of 8 months. I wanted to better be able to understand them. So I started reading even books on child development. I started
Mhm.
reading a lot of our history, anything, art, anything that I could get my hands on. A lot of the prison books in jail, they call it the law library, and they're outdated. But to me, it was just a way to escape the prison. Just vicariously, I felt like I could go anywhere. People would often ask me after talking to me, "Hey, have you been there?" And I was like, "Where, London?" No, but I read a lot about it.
Yeah.
So I almost feel like I been there.
In a sense, I'm sure it does. Yeah. Just to not to backtrack too much, but I'm always curious what in that moment, when you got your sentence handed to you, that sounds like such a massive amount of time. Were you able to wrap your mind around, you know, that many years, what just took place?
Well, it I understood that it was 30 years, but something inside of me would tell myself like it's not going to be 30 years, and if it is,
Hmm.
it's going to be 30 years and you're going to be angry, or it's going to be 30 years and you're not going to be so angry. So I always told people I'm going to do the time my way. And
Right.
my way was by reading and educating and trying to repair, because I I did a lot of damage to my relationships, and so I knew that I needed to repair those relationships, because even if I was in prison, I was still a father. I was still, like, at that time, I was still a husband. I was
Right.
a brother. I was a son. So I knew that what they had portrayed me in the court to be,
Hmm.
it wasn't a fraction of who Manny Rodriguez was. I was a very loving, caring, kind person that made a lot of poor choices.
Hmm.
And I knew that by me being in prison, I wasn't going to redeem myself. I wasn't going to repair the damages. So I I just made a priority to write, to tell my family what I was going through, and to ask for forgiveness. And not only my family, I remember making my sister cry, because I would tell her, like, I I have a whole community that I hurt. Now I'm not doing any drugs, so I have clarity of mind. So I understand the scope of the ripple effect that my actions contributed to. Maybe people not paying their rent, or maybe they didn't provide for their family because I was selling drugs to them, and that it really took a toll on me emotionally, because I knew that by me being in prison, I could not do anything about it. Like, people were not getting anything out of me being in prison besides having to pay a tax bill for me. And so I just kind of held on to my faith and the hope that one day I'm going to be able to undo some of the wrong that I have
Right.
caused on my community. Because like I said, I did it, but I didn't do it intentionally. I did it because of a combination of my addictions and just the life that I was living at the time.
Right. Right. That's very honorable to hear you say this. I appreciate you mentioning the fact that you were still a father, still a husband, a son, a brother, and trying to maintain those relationships despite where you were placed during that time. I've always wondered how a man or woman can stay in contact and still hold that place, in their loved ones' lives, and while they're separated. And it,
Well, I had 15-minute phone calls, which was very hard, because to try to be the father figure in a 15-minute phone call, especially because I had read in books that never ended on a bad note, our phone call, or don't start it on, like, on trying to discipline.
right,
So I had to manage my time. First ask how his day was and how is everything, and then try to use the time. And that's not without the interruption of the phone recording saying, "This is a call from a federal prison."
yeah,
So that was very hard. So I also used letters. And as my son was growing, I would find characters that he admired or that he liked. And I started drawing, and I would send him those drawings. Sometimes it was just like a sun and a happy face that's saying, "This is how I feel when I see you or when I think of you."
yeah,
Um, it wasn't easy, but I did have, like, a relationship, and I've always had, like, the philosophy or the model that we don't get what we want, we get what we get. And so I had to do with what I had, and
mhm,
like, I think that I did a good job, and my family did a good job at picking up the phone calls and making sure that I have that, even if it's 5 minutes with my son,
right,
because it was so important in his formative years. Like, I was
yes,
never able to be there for, like, a teacher parent conference,
mhm,
but I did take it, and I wrote the teachers, like, "Hey, I'm Armando's father, and I'm in prison, and I'm interested in his education." Um, so in my own way, I think I did the best I could. Institutions, prison doesn't make it easy on us.
right,
Um, and it was just hard, but I was of, like, the mind that, you know what, I can't change them, but I can only, like, choose how I father my son and how I deal with this. So just I think that things happen, and today I'm happy, and I could happily say that I have a class with Armando at a university. To me, my biggest fear in prison was to be what we call cellies, but it's actually roommates with another person. And I got to see father and son, which was my biggest fear. Um, and I could, I'm happy to say that that's not the case. We are classmates though, and that to me is the highlight of my day. Sometimes when I have a
Mhm.
class, I just catch myself smiling. I said like, wow, who would have ever thought that I wasn't even supposed to be out here, but here I am in a class with my son, and in hopes that we can change, that I could change or be a part of the
Mhm.
change and the narrative of our stories. So that one day our family doesn't have to say like,
Right.
do we go to college, but where do I go to college?
I love that. You have a great attitude, and that's good to know. Also, that's good information for other people. You can still stay tapped in and in tune, to your child's life. Um, I like to hear and learn new things, and I haven't heard that until speaking with you today. Um, from what it sounds like, books were a huge part of, keeping you on a path to staying positive and really filling your time and your mind with things that were on a positive note rather than getting caught up maybe in the ins and outs of every day in prison. Would you think that's
Well, prison is a place where there's a lot of animosity, a lot of misfortune, and a
true?
lot of anxiety. We all cope with it in different ways. And for me, I found that through the books. Um, at that time, I didn't know, but I was transforming my thinking process. Instead of like being upset because somebody bumped into me, like maybe being more like open to like maybe they're having a bad day, or maybe they didn't see me, or it was a mistake. It wasn't intentional, and
Mhm.
they just the books really helped me to expand my mind, and I didn't have that opportunity in school. To this day, I ask myself, what would have happened if maybe one of my teachers would have given me like a chance, because I suffer from ADD and dyslexia, and so like I have what people call disabilities, but I call them differences
Mhm.
because I just learn different. Sometimes I have to read the same page two or three times because even though I'm reading it, I don't grasp, I don't comprehend. Um, so yes, books were like I they were like my chief source of entertainment in prison. Like if I
Mhm.
wanted to just go somewhere, but we were on lockdown, I would read a book, and and it had like I didn't even have the luxury of like reading like the books that I wanted. I would just read whatever would fit through the door. Sometimes, like under the
Mhm.
door, because that's how we exchange books. And sometimes I read the same book twice, and and I think in a way it was a blessing because it allowed me to work on my imagination.
Mhm.
And sometimes I would just kind of like read the newspaper and play devil's advocate, and I wonder what happened here, and all that. Now I was like, well, you know what? It was critical thinking. I just didn't know it at that time,
Right.
but now I like to tell people that the world is my library. I was confined
Mhm.
to a cell and having a small library, and today sometimes I'm somewhere and I'm just reading, and that's still like the the gift is still there. I still get fascinated by like just reading a quote, or just a
Mhm.
couple paragraphs of whatever. It's just I I like to think that like it's like a buffet for me. Like I'm just so anxious and so
Yeah,
excited to get like new knowledge.
that's great. That's great. What could you say that you did while you were there, incarcerated, to sort of help yourself in getting your sentence maybe reduced or getting an earlier release date than you originally had?
Well, for one, I started reading all the law books, and I wrote my life story down, and that was with no, with all the facts that I remembered, even if they weren't like the best, happiest moments, because I think that everything plays a factor in my sentence.
Agree.
And I started working with a gentleman that he also liked to study law. And then I just wrote a motion, and by the grace of God, like I got a letter like 2 years later saying that my motion was granted. And when I came back, I had the pro bono attorney ask me like, who wrote this? And I said, why? And he said, like, this is brilliant. Like, you focused on just one thing and you weren't like so scattered, because a lot of the times we feel that it was an injustice,
Mhm.
and we just try to attack a lot of things. But I just focused on the one thing that I thought that would make a difference in my sentence, and after that, I had a pro bono attorney, and he took it from there, and they reduced it from 360 months to 230 months.
Okay.
But what was interesting, first they resentenced me to 260, and then after speaking to the judge, uh, he went ahead and gave me 2 more points for I think it's called Pepper versus the United States,
Mhm.
and it basically talks about your post-sentencing conduct, because at the time that they sentenced me, the government had nothing nice to say, and just focused on my wrongs. And in prison, I could have either gotten more in trouble
Mhm.
because it was a school of criminology,
Sure.
but I chose to focus on rehabilitation and owning up to my mistakes. And I think that the judge saw that, and gave me a. I say that he gave me my life back, because I
Wow.
still did 15 years and a half, but it gave me enough time for me to learn gratitude.
I love that. Yeah. That's amazing. Who better to tell your story, write your story than yourself, you know?
Yes, and I promised to myself that I would be the I would tell my story, because there's a lot of work and research done on formerly incarcerated people, but it's always the work of somebody that doesn't know the story, so it doesn't give it justice. So I think that
Right.
everybody has a story, and it's worth being said by them, for
Yeah.
them.
I definitely agree. I feel like it can be very therapeutic, just agreeing with you and working with others. I feel like it's therapeutic not only for yourself, but it can really help others that maybe haven't quite dealt with what they've been through yet.
One of the things that I like to tell people is that I think what really helped me is therapy. Like, I'm a
Mhm.
big believer in mental therapy, because mental health. All the time that I was in prison, people used to tell me like, "Let's go work out." I mean, and when they were saying work out, it's good. Don't get me wrong. You need to work out your biceps, but nobody ever told me like, "Hey, Manny, take a day off for self care, or just to think or reflect." And through reading books, I realized that it's just as important to work out your mind, your emotional well being,
Right.
emotional intelligence, than to work out your core, your body.
Mhm.
So I try to promote that. I always try to tell people like, hey, doesn't mean that you're crazy. It just means that you could benefit from talking to somebody. And I had that more respect for therapy. I
Right.
I love CBT. I always tell people that in prison, me without knowing what it was,
Mhm.
that's kind of what I started practicing. I started using those tools, um, but because sometimes the jargon is intimidating, and we don't know that, but we actually have experience, and we have practical knowledge of some of the tools that exist
Mhm.
for us to live a better and healthier life.
Right. Can you break that down for people that maybe don't know what CBT is?
Well, CBT is it's cognitive behavioral therapy,
Mhm.
and it's basically, it focuses on examining your thinking, because a lot of the times an event happens and we react to it, but by examining my thinking, I challenge my thoughts, and then that way my behavior changes. And that happens to me like on a regular basis now. I don't have to really do the whole process, because it's kind of becoming a habit. So you
Mhm.
know some people say that I'm getting soft. and I think that I'm just just learning to just make healthier choices.
Right.
But that's what it is, like sometimes we're so quick to react or respond, and the damage or it wasn't even intended. It was just
Right.
mostly an assumption.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's great to hear. Leading up to, when you find out you're going to be released, and the judge had basically given you your life back, like you said, what were you looking at coming home to? Did you still have your family being supportive and arrangements made?
I remember going in the courtroom and coming back to the housing unit, and people were asking me what happened, and I said, what happened is I feel like I beat cancer. Now I just have to stay here a few years for observation, just to just check me out. And well, my wife and I got divorced through the whole length of my sentence,
Mhm.
but she was always a friend. She made sure that I had the space of being a father. So that gave me the opportunity to stay positive. And my mom was always my mom, and like she was always there, and my brothers were sending me books. My sisters were visiting me, so
Mhm.
yes, I did have the support, and now it just made it like it was in the near future. I had 4 years left, and I remember even reading more and just being happy, and saying, okay, now I have a date, and it's not that far away, so um, I started making a plan. But little did I know that COVID was gonna come and wipe
Mhm.
out all my plans. I was supposed to get released in May of 2019. Well, to 2019 and March 14th, they locked the whole institution down.
That's
And
right.
here we go again, me without knowing. Like I was mad, I was angry.
Mhm.
I remember saying, like, I have a year of good time. I should just max out because if I'm gonna be here. And on top of that, I was in the shoe because I can no longer be in GP, and that's general population, because I'm not supposed to be there, but they can't release me because America's on shutdown.
Wow.
So I mean, I went back and I started. That's when CBT, like, I started just examining my thinking, and
Mhm.
I started writing, and I wrote a quote that I still to this day I still use, and the quote says, "My failures, my hardships, my obstacles could end up my excuse or my story, and I choose for it to be my story." And
Mhm.
I wrote that in the shoe, and at my lowest point, like thinking, like, I can't go home, and my day is yesterday. Um, and then I got another date, which I was supposed to go home, and then an outbreak at the halfway house. So then I didn't go home again. And, so it was supposed to be a happy moment where my family and I had plans for they were going to pick me up, and
Mhm.
we were going to go get something to eat. And, and our family food is big. And, you know,
Mhm.
I wanted a burrito. I wanted this. I wanted that.
Yeah.
So none of that happened because
Mm.
I got out in COVID. Everything had America on lockdown. And
Mhm.
at the time now, I like to talk to people and I say, like, look, it affected us all, directly or indirectly, and that just made me a better person because it built my empathy. Like, not only was I going through it, there was like a lot of people going through it. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I it sounds corny and everything, but I mean that's just the hand we're dealt, and we have to play it.
Right.
Like, at the end of the day, the only thing we have is how we choose to look at things and react.
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
blessed that I always focus on the positive. Sometimes I'm in traffic today, and my girl says, like, "Why are you so happy?" And I was like, "I couldn't wait for this day." When I was
Mhm.
in lockdown, I was like, "I can't wait to be in traffic." Like, I can't
Right.
step on dog shit. Like, so. I mean, well, there's no dogs in prison, right? So it's like, what might be
Yeah.
bad for people out here, like I have a different perspective. I today, you know, um, I get to go to the gym. Like people say, like, I have to go to the gym, and it's like we get to go to
Mm.
the gym. So
Yeah.
I know prison made me the person I am, and I'm not happy I was there, but for all the people that are there, I always try to tell them, hey, you know what? Um, I mean, you can't get out. So it's like maybe work on our thinking, work on our thinking.
Mhm. Yeah, it sounds like it really shifted your way of thinking, and
I'm grateful for life, and, just wherever I may be, I try to make the best of it.
that's awesome. Yeah. So, what are you doing with your second chance these days?
Well, I came out and I went to a community college. I earned an associate's. I got accepted to the university now. I'm in a bachelor's
Congratulations.
program.
Mhm.
I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I'm already thinking about grad school. And that is because I want to be a small part and change for others like myself. I promote higher education for everyone
Mhm.
because I know the feeling of wanting to get education and not being able to. And I know the transformation that happens when we educate, when we have formal education. So I think that not only would the person benefit themselves,
Mhm.
but they'll be a better son, a better father, and even the COs will be much safer because somebody is formally educated.
Yeah.
Um, I know that a lot of the taxpayers complain because they see it as like, oh, we're paying for people that to to educate them while they're in prison. They committed a crime, but
Mhm.
I think that they don't see the big picture, and they see that, hey, you
Mhm.
know what? It's cheaper to rehabilitate somebody and give them tools than just to do mass incarceration. So I would
Absolutely.
like to work on policy change
Yeah.
and also on reducing the barriers for people coming home.
That's great. I think that we need more people like you for sure. And mentioning the fact that it would make it easier on the COs even. A lot of people might not have thought of that, but it definitely makes sense.
I work with the youth now. I work with the school district, and I love it because I see a lot of potential there. I see a lot of kids that remind me of myself, long time ago.
Yeah.
And if I can just make a difference in one of their lives and helping them being the best them, then that's how I've redeemed myself. Now I paid my debt to society, and I go there, and I sometimes I'm all ears. I
Mhm.
listen to the students because I think that that's what's missing in today's society. Like everybody has something to say, but nobody wants to listen, right?
That's
And
right.
sometimes I think that these kids are crying for help. These students are crying
Mhm.
for help, and well, I might not have all the resources. I could possibly guide them in the right direction, or just by telling them that I care. Putting a smile on their faces. I
Right.
think that impact can be life lasting,
Absolutely. Absolutely. They feel, I'm sure, like they're being heard. And that's important. Yeah.
valued.
Yeah. Valued. I just want to thank you for sharing your story today, Manny. It was, an honor to meet you and to hear you tell your story like nobody but yourself could, right? And thank you for paying it forward and doing what you do.
Thank you for giving me the space, and I hope that somebody someday listens to this story, and maybe I could, be of some kind of inspiration or hope to them. And if I can do it, we can do it together, though, as a community. I haven't done this change by myself. It's been the work of all my family, my kid's mother, my son, and many professors now that there are too many to name, and somebody like yourself giving me the space and the platform to say my story. So thank
That's
you.
wonderful to hear. Thank you. Yeah, we're all going to be like one big happy family.
That's the goal. That's the goal.
Convicted Hearts family. Yeah. Thank you so much. You guys, keep your hearts convicted. Never forget that. If you have any questions, leave them down below, and I'm sure Manny will see them. For now, thank you for watching and have a blessed day.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.